Hi, welcome back, or welcome period, I guess, if you've never checked out any of these videos. Um, Thanks for taking the time to take a look. So, got a few things that I wanted to talk about, um, all revolving around the same basic premise, um, mostly fear. What what is stopping you from doing the things you want to do in the way you want to do them? What are you doing with your life that's dissatisfying because you're afraid to do something else? Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, um, fear of just maybe not being adequate. There's just an unlimited number of ways fear can impact your life and how you proceed. And I'm no different than anybody else. I have my own fears that I struggle with, and I just recently taken some action in my life to continue moving in the direction that I feel like I need to go. And it's been some time coming, and it's not really mixed emotions, but I'm slightly confused because of the transition. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that you have to deal with when you um, make the decision to take some kind of action that's outside of your comfort zone, outside of the norm, and might result in extreme discomfort. I don't really know how else to put that. So, first things first, it's beginning of May 2022, and I find myself unemployed again, by choice again, with aspirations of greatness again. And last time around, I didn't quite make what I wanted to make. I didn't get to where I was intending to go. I hate to say it was a failure, but it was definitely a swing and a miss. And I have to keep reminding myself of what I learned during that last time around. And we're creeping up on 3 years now. 3 years of punishing myself for that failure. And honestly, it's liberating. I feel fantastic. Um, Today's Thursday. I quit on Tuesday, 2 days ago. This is my second full day away from a job that was aggravating, infuriating, life sucking. Um, Name your metaphor, your cliche, whatever you want. It was definitely something I was ready to be done with, and I had been holding out for probably a year. About this time last year, I decided, you know what, I'm ready to be done. This is enough. So just shy of 2 years of doing this, and this was really meant to be a stopgap decision, and it's lasted much longer than I thought. It was supposed to be a temporary thing, but I reached a certain comfort level. And honestly, I was afraid of putting myself in a position where I might not be successful. I was afraid of being fully responsible for my own happiness and my own freedom. And I was willing to trade a good portion of those things, happiness and freedom, for security and comfort. And I am in a relationship, so I have somebody else that I have to factor into that as well. And my wife has her own fears, and I struggled with that the last time around. And if you're not familiar with my history and how I got to this point, there's plenty of videos on the Jason Witkenak YouTube channel. There's plenty of videos on the Sage Gramond YouTube channel, and then obviously this new variation of the Sage Gramond concept, the OTR, and there's a lot of stuff there. But just a quick recap: I was in property management for a number of years that I was doing to try and get myself to a position to start my own either hospitality business, a restaurant, an B&B, even the idea of starting a small hotel, something like that. Those are all been aspirations of mine for a long time, and I spent 20 years in that industry accumulating all the tools, all the resources personally that I would need to be successful in doing those. But the first time you do anything it's difficult. There's a learning curve. There's a time where you have to observe and understand the dynamics so that you can manipulate those dynamics. And as much as you watch from the outside, until you jump in and do it, you're never really going to fully grasp all of the factors that can impact whether you're successful or not, including your own fears. So several years ago, 2019 to be exact, I had decided, 2018, I left property management and launched Sage Gramond as a coaching and consulting business, also doing food-related stuff on the side, just really kind of trying to tie the whole philosophy of Sage Gramond into one profit-producing entity that it fell short. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And it was a situation where I knew all the theories, I knew all the philosophy behind it, I knew practical applications, but you can watch somebody juggle for years and years and years and be like, I understand it in principle, I understand the movements, I can make my body do that, but until you actually grab some shit and start trying to juggle, you're not gonna, it takes practice, it takes hands-on experience to become good. You have to learn, you have to adjust, you have to really just get the feel for it. It's just you can't really put it any simpler than that, and it seems so simple, but it's easy to get lost up in it. Your emotional state can take you to places you don't want to go, you don't need to go, that aren't beneficial or helpful to you, but until you actually try it, you just don't know. And I don't want to say that I made mistakes before, but I learned I don't know how to phrase that. I mean, I learned a lot. It was a learning experience, and it was necessary, and it had an emotional impact on me, but I tried this, I tried that, I tried keeping this mindset, I tried to keep this focus, and honestly, I've been thinking about it so much lately, and thinking back to that period of time, I really just got lost in the details. I lost focus of what I was trying to do because there's so many different aspects of it that I never really understood that could influence and impact your result. And when I left, that feeling of freedom that I was on my own, nothing could stop me except for me, was one of the most liberating feelings I've ever had. And I wasn't really scared. I just was like, this is the way it's going to be. This is what I want to do. I understand the principles behind it. Now I'm just going to make it happen. But, shit happens. And it didn't really work out. And it caused a tremendous amount of stress in my relationship and just in my life in general. I was just like, where the hell do I go from here? And I went back into property management to the same office that I had left in. So I left in 2018 and I went back in 2019. So I had just shy of a year and a half of trying to make this work, and I used all of our leverage, financial leverage. I really pushed it to the limit. I held out as long as I could, thinking that any day it was going to take off. Any day this is going to happen. Any day, all I need is one more connection, one more person to introduce me to somebody else that's going to get me to here. And it was close. It was so close. I felt like I was right at the doorstep. But again, I got lost in the details of it and couldn't bring it home. That was it. So I went back to an office, a company that I didn't necessarily care for, working with people that I didn't necessarily care for, but it was necessary. I needed something to give me some financial stability that didn't require a whole lot on my part. And it really was intended to be 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year at most. And COVID came and changed all that. It changed the dynamic of how we live our lives, and threw some factors into human existence that nobody in recent years has ever had to deal with. It was a worldwide impact, and this job ended up playing into that being beneficial. It was actually a good time for me, and I didn't really have to think about a lot. I didn't have to focus on a lot, and I just focused on what I had been trying to focus on when everything was going downhill there at the end of my inaugural flight with Sage Gourmand. And it was good. And then things started to change back. Things started to get back to normal, and the things that were perks and benefits just weren't enough anymore. So for a year now, I've been like, I'm ready to do something else, but I'm afraid to do it. And I didn't really want to put the stress on us financially or us just in our relationship. So I chose not to do anything, and I kind of skirted around with different ideas. I finally, a couple months ago, decided to get the concept of Sage Gourmand back up, to resurrect something that I thought had died. And then ultimately it did, because I let it die. I let it die in me because I was like, I just don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. But it's still an essential part of who I am. And as much as I thought it was gone, dead, deceased, it was just dormant inside of me, and it was coming back. And it was getting to the point where I was like, all right, well, if I really want to fulfill my potential, if I really want to make some changes in my life and the world, then the time is now to start doing this again. And over the last probably 6-8 weeks, I went back and forth about, all right, this is it. I'm going to give notice. I'm going to quit. I'm going to do this. It didn't hurt anything that my job situation was getting out of control. It was just, from a coaching and consulting standpoint, there was just so many things going on with that company on a national basis and a local basis with our specific office. Just a lack of leadership, a lack of follow through, and it was frustrating. It was unpleasant. I was angry all the time, frustrated all the time, and it had an impact on my existence. And I was like, all right, this is it. I need to make some changes. And there's definitely been something, an energy or a vibe that has been different over the last couple months. And I was like, this is it. I mean, everything was kind of coming to a head that was signifying to me that this was the end of an old lifestyle. It was the beginning of a new. And I felt like I had punished myself long enough. And I refer to movies all the time because there's just certain things, movie lines, songs, dialogue, things that are like, you know what, that fits my situation very well. And there's a movie called Burnt. I think it's called Burnt. Bradley Cooper, he's a chef, and he fucks up, and he punishes himself by working in a bullshit place, doing some bullshit work, until he feels like he's punished himself enough, and then decides to get back on the horse and try and find his greatness again, which is where I'm at. And as much relief all the way down to the core of my soul that I feel now being away from that toxic work environment, I'm still fearful. I'm fearful of losing focus again and not being able to see this through to where I feel it needs to go. But the fact that I've been through it once before is comforting. It's reassuring to me. It's the premise behind practice. It's, that was a practice run, and I came very close to being successful with that. I came close to making that happen. And cycling back, it wasn't really mistakes that I made. It was just inefficient choices. I made decisions along the way that I thought would help me get to where I was going, but they didn't quite work out how I wanted to. And I found more efficient ways, both internally and externally, to make things happen. It's the whole concept of creating your own environment, creating your own reality, and manifesting the life that you want. And had I not been through that, had I not been through the last 3 years, I wouldn't feel so comfortable moving forward with this now. So it's, you first time you're learning to ride a bike, you get on it, you fall down, and you're like, fuck, I don't want to do that again. That hurt. And you're like, no, I really want to ride. And, the experience you gain from that first attempt is something that's going to get you through any future attempts. It's going to enhance your ability to make shit happen for yourself. And that's where I'm at right now. Trying to soar in the clouds and be completely detached from the anchors of life that take away every reason for wanting to live. So I feel good. I'm comfortable with it. And we're creeping up on the 20-minute mark, trying to keep these at 20 minutes or less. So that's it, you know. Face your fears and do what you feel you need to do to be happy. That's it.